expose the truth, to ask key questions about what happened on January 6th, who animated the violence, the extent to which the federal government may have been involved. We know this. January 6th last year wasn't an insurrection. No one has been charged with insurrection. No one has been charged with treason.
Are you aware of any conversations or communications regarding the possibility of giving Congressman Matt Gaetz a pardon?
I know he had asked for it, but I don't know if he ever received one or what happened with it.
How do you know that Congressman Gaetz asked for a pardon?
He told me.
Tell us about that.
He told me he'd asked Meadows for a pardon.
Trumpster Representative Mo Brooks sent an email just days after the insurrection at the Capitol asking for all-purpose pardons for himself and others who voted to support Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, and none of this should really be surprising, especially if you've been watching the January 6th hearings. But what are some key but overarching takeaways so far? Well, for one, the people who were complicit in inciting the insurrection and attempting the coup knew what they were doing while they were doing it. Two, they were told repeatedly that what they were doing was illegal. Three, they were aware of the potential consequences for their actions. Four, some of them were actually delusional enough to believe that Trump was a good president who was worth illegally breaking nearly 300 years of Democratic precedent to illegally attempt to install him as president for a second term, despite the election results. And five, this country is apparently run by theocratic idiots who ask themselves, what would Jesus do every morning before they go out into the world and commit heinous crimes against their own countrymen?
And was Representative Gaetz requesting a pardon?
Believe so. The general tone was, we may get prosecuted because we were defensive of, the president's positions on these things. The pardon that he was requesting, was as broad as you could describe. From the beginning, I remember he's from the beginning of time up until today, for any and all things. He mentioned Nixon, and I said Nixon's pardon was never nearly that broad.
And are you aware of any members of Congress seeking pardons?
I guess Mr. Gaetz and Mr. Brooks, I know, have both advocated for there to be a blanket pardon for members involved in that meeting, and a handful of other members that weren't at the December 21st meeting. As the preemptive pardons. Mr. Gaetz was personally pushing for a pardon, and he was doing so since early December. I'm not sure why. Mr. Gaetz had reached out to me to ask if he could have a meeting with Mr. Meadows about receiving a presidential pardon.
Now, after Thursday's hearing presented an email from Mo Brooks that literally had pardons in the subject line, several of the accused pardon seekers denied having any involvement or interest in the email. Specifically, the email requested pardons for, quote, every congressman and senator who voted to reject the Electoral College vote submissions of Arizona and Pennsylvania, end quote. Now, to be clear, there were 147 Republicans who voted in support of Trump's attempt to steal the election that he claimed had been stolen from him. Mo Brooks was seeking pardons for all 147 of them. And according to several Trump aides, Representatives Andy Biggs, Louis Gohmert, Scott Perry, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Matt Gaetz were among those who sought clemency from the White House. Now, those representatives and others are denying these claims in some form or other, some choosing to evade the question altogether, some attempting to discredit the hearings, and Louis Gohmert asserting that he only ever sought pardons for other people, like U.S. service members and military contractors. Mo Brooks, for his part, said, quote, the email request says it all, which is a strangely commendable thing for him to say, and that he's not trying to deny having sent the email nor the contents of it. It shouldn't be commendable for someone to not gaslight people by telling them what they're reading with their own eyes isn't real, but that's the state of our nation today. So thanks for not gaslighting us, Mo Brooks. You're a stand-up guy. All the kudos in the world to you. Of course, Brooks's cooperation with the committee does feel a bit like revenge testifying. Brooks recently lost his Senate re-election bid, and who knows if this made a difference or not, but Trump had previously rescinded his endorsement of Brooks in the race. Trump also accused Mo Brooks, of all people, of going woke because he told people to get over the 2020 election. Now, I wouldn't ever go so far as to call Mo Brooks woke, but his Senate opponent, the one who won the Alabama GOP primary for the U.S. Senate seat, might be even more unwoke or asleep than Brooks. Her campaign promised to put God back into classrooms, which is in line with the theocratic nightmare that the GOP is trying to inflict on this country. But before I get too distracted, seeking a pardon is an admission of guilt. You need to commit a crime before you can be pardoned for a crime. Do you guys remember Rasputin? He was the holy man who helped to bring down the Russian Empire, whether or not that was his intention. He believed that people had to sin. It was better to sin. God wanted you to sin because if you never sin, how can you accept his forgiveness? What is there to be saved from if you've never sinned? So he sinned all over the place all the time, and he encouraged others to do the same. Now, up to this point, the hearings have highlighted something terrifying. People in their convictions can and will believe the most ridiculous nonsense if it's in line with their previously established beliefs. They build and build upon one another until the next thing you know, the US government is run by a bunch of conspiracy theorists who believe their own lies and fantasies because they've gone so far into their own rabbit hole that they don't even see the world around them anymore. Holding on to strong convictions, is it a bad thing or a good thing? People often describe coming out of cults as waking up from a dream, but up until the point of waking up, or one could even say going woke, they were convicted. They were committed, they would have done unthinkable things in defense of their beliefs, and they would have excused bad or even malicious behavior, either from themselves or others, in the name and pursuit of their chosen ideologies. Religious fanaticism, political sycophancy, all of these things are devoid of actual humanity. Religious extremists worship an invisible God and a guy who lived thousands of years ago. They call upon his name to justify their own vile actions and words. They purport to be the authority on morality and all that is right and just in this world because they really get Jesus and his message. And the sycophants, the people who basically idolize politicians, believing them to be bigger than the rest of us, become willing lackeys to those they've determined to either be divinely inspired leaders or the ones that will get them closest to money and power. They look up to these horrible people and they're willing to go potentially to jail on their behalf. These politicians are just men and women like you and me. They're not worthy of worship. No one is. Idolatry can take so many forms. You don't have to have a statue of Donald Trump made of old chewed up bubblegum in your closet to idolize him. And maybe in all of this, I'm talking about something else. I'll admit, I'm a little distracted today. As of the time of recording, we just heard about the SCOTUS ruling on Roe v. Wade, and I'm heartbroken. And that's it. That's it.